Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo was Soul King's new successor and harem? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the EmperorNox for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. Blinked staring at the woman in front of me. She was a well-endowed purple-haired lady with styled swirl-shaped markings on her cheeks and black lips. She had a large silver adornment in her hair, and wore the standard Shinigami uniform beneath a white, long-sleeved haori. Say again, I don't think I heard you right? I asked. I'm here on behalf of the Reo to give you an offer from the Reo himself. She repeated. Ichi and I, who is it? Yuzu called from inside. Invite her in before Gochin does something stupid. Karen said. Oh yes, I must speak Ishin-kun as well. She informed and walked in. I closed the door, and when we entered the living room I saw Dad jump up. Kiryu-chan? He asked/yelled. Ishin Shiba-kun. She said, walking forward, and when she was right in front of him, she swept his legs from under him, a katana appearing in her hands, and she pointed it at his throat. Shit! I said, looking between her and Karen and Yuzu. What's going on? Karen asked, blinking. Dad and I said at the same time. I see, looks like Ichigo-san wasn't the only one lied to. Kiryu said, glaring at Ishin. Well girls, here's how it works. She said and began explaining souls, Shinigami, and hollows. Crap. Though as she finished, unable to find a way to stop her. They'd find out eventually. My inner hollow said. Your father was once Taicho of Squad 10 and soon to be member of the Zero Squad before he disappeared into the human world, where he met Masaki Kurosaki, who was a She was cut off when Ishin pushed her off and clamped a hand over her mouth, but was too late. I knew what she was trying to say. A Quincy, correct? I asked, and she nodded, and with a shrug was back in the same position as before. Well, San, when were you going to tell us you were a Shinigami? I admit I was keeping it from Karen and Yuzu, but I didn't want to drag them into the current situation. I asked. I can't deny I feared telling you, but more on that later. After Kiryu-chan is finished, I'll answer Yuzu and Karen's questions. He said and returned, or in his case looked, to the purple-haired Shinigami. Well, the reason I'm here, as I've told Ichigo-san, is that the Reo has an offer for him. She informed. This offer is? Ishin asked. I wouldn't know. I'm only here to inform him and give him the decision of going for an audience with him, or declining. She said. I accept the honor. I said, politely bowing. Very well, come with me. I have Kasuke Urahara setting up the Racier converter on Otsukun's portal. She said, and we all left with her to the Urahara Showdown. Upon arriving, everyone was silent as we passed even Kasuke, and we entered without resistance. When an overwhelming Ryatsu covered us but then pulled back, I blinked and looked at the Soul King. He was a black-haired, weird-eyed figure surrounded by an orb. After a few minutes the orb shifted and a shimmer formed into a charismatic man with black hair and purple eyes, wearing a golden shihakusho, and wielding a golden katana in a gold sheath. Well, Ichigo Kurosaki, it is nice to meet you. I feel you are surprised. Do you wish to know why I have asked for you? He asked with a kind smile. Yes, sir. I said, adding sir, as since I didn't know what to call him. Akihiko is my name, and you may call me by san. I have called you here Ichigo Kurosaki-san, because I have found you to be a being much like myself. He informed. What do you mean, Akihiko-san? I asked, confused. Ichigo Kurosaki, you are a mixture of Shinigami, Hollow, and Quincy. I am the first of all three, do you understand? He asked, and I blinked, eyes widening. Yes, you understand. He noted. The reason I called you here is because few can be what we are. My children, in fact, are not the same. He informed. Your children? I asked. Yes, the first and oldest being Yawach, king and father of the Quincy's, and the second you will meet soon. He said. But that is not for just yet, you see. I wish to, as the humans would say, retire. He informed, making Kiryu gasp. Why? I asked. I have ruled too long. Since the dawn of time I have ruled over the afterlife, keeping the balance between souls, until the Godai 13 were created. Then I rested, but I must still keep the balance. But this debacle with Aizen has made me realize I can no longer sit back. But I also cannot leave things as they are, so I will crown an heir to fight and make decisions on my behalf. I have chosen you, Ichigo Kurosaki, to do so. He said. And me? I asked. Yes, you are the perfect choice. Ichigo, do you know your Zanpakuto's name? He asked. It's Zangetsu. I replied. Zangetsu? He asked. Ichigo, you have been lied to. Your Zanpakuto is Zangetsu. He said. What? I asked. Ichigo, I know the true Zanpakuto of every Shinigami, and yours doesn't have the name Zangetsu. He said. Before you leave here, meet with Otsunomaya and gain your true Zanpakuto. He ordered. Wait, if you want me to be your heir, I would have to be your son, so how would that work? I asked. That brings me to this. He replied. I have a daughter whom is quite beautiful, smart, powerful, and kind, but she isn't confident, so you can see if you might like her, and if so then you will become my heir through marriage. If not, I have another way, but let us go with the easier option if possible. He replied. You spoke of your son being older, wouldn't he be heir? I asked. No, he is unfit for the throne, and not to mention he would misuse the power. No, you are the best choice. Hikifune-san, go and tell her I wish to see her. He ordered, and the woman walked off. While we wait, I wish to speak to Isshin Shiba. Speak to your Zanpakuto before you meet Otsunomaya. He said. Shiba? I asked myself and walked to the corner of the room performing Jin's in inner world. I blinked as instead of the blue skyscrapers I was in a field with three-story houses. The first a traditional Japanese home except for its all-black coloring. The second was a house much like my normal one except it was painted royal blue, and didn't have a sign saying Kurosaki Clinic. The third and last appeared to be a stone temple of some sort. Arranged in a triangle, each was surrounded by black lotus flowers and dry ponds. If the flopping koi were anything to go by, kept them apart. Yo king! I turned quickly to see the albino figure of my inner hollow. I got on the defensive, but he smirked. Calm down, you must have noticed I didn't attack you. I have no reason to want you dead or take control. I'm getting what I want. He said. He speaks the truth. I turned once more to see a teenager with medium-length ragged black hair and azure eyes. He had pale skin, high cheekbones. His attire consisted of a black shirt, black pants, low-heeled boots, and a long, hooded, amorphous black overcoat that flared out into ragged ends. On top of the blue building stood old man Zangetsu. Who are you? I asked. I am Enjetsu, the moon who blankets the world in darkness and lets no light escape. He said, his tone that of pride in his name. And you are my Zanpakuto? I nodded. Yes, I am. Then what are you? I called to Zangetsu. I am a Quincy. He said as if it was obvious. So is Zangetsu your name, or do you prefer something else? I asked. My true name is Shutsenjul. He said proudly. Do you have a representation as a weapon? I asked. He reached into his coat and threw a bracelet my way. I caught it and looked at the pendant, which was that of a Celtic cross. That is my physical form. You use it to form a spirit weapon, the style and form of which matters little, though it is traditionally a bow. He informed, jumping down and going inside the house. You're trusting him? Enjetsu asked. I am. He'll do as he has and advise me, as is his right to offer what advice he wishes. I informed. Okay then, when you get the blade from the forger, you will know what to say. He said, walking into the Japanese home. Well, king, anything to say to me? The hollow me asked. I want to make a deal. I said, gaining confidence. I'm listening. He said. I thought carefully about my terms and smirked. You listen to me and don't fight me, and I'll do 4 things. Firstly, I will take any serious advice you have for me. Secondly, if I feel like it, I'll manifest you. Thirdly, if I am about to die, you are allowed to manifest and fight with me, no holds bar. Lastly, if you were to eat another hollow, what would happen? I asked. It would be purified, cause I use your Zanpakuto. He trailed off. I was correct. I said, smiling. My guess had been correct. Having a Zanpakuto means a hollow purifies any hollows it eats, sending all other spirits to the soul society. So? I asked. Deal. He said quickly, his eyes glinting with glee. I smiled as I exited my inner world, now confident. Real world. I opened my eyes to hear a knock on the doors of the hall. Come in. Akihiko said, and through the door came a dark-skinned man with thick, black hair that is shaven and dyed green on the sides of his head. He wore a variation of the Shinigami Shihakusho, featuring instead a green undergarment, and a shortened hakama that exposed his lower legs. Worn over this was a white, sleeveless puffer jacket. His attire was completed by gold-framed sunglasses with blue lenses, and a pair of green slippers that were gold-trimmed and had a shoe-like appearance. After him came a 15-year-old with messy white hair reaching her shoulders and golden eyes, wearing a white shihakusho with a shortened hakama resembling a skirt, and at her side was a katana with a circular tsuba white wrapping ending with 2 elegant sapphire-colored tassels in an ivory sheath. She walked shyly behind the dark-skinned man. She's pretty hot. My hollow noted. That's not all that matters with a girl. I replied. After them came a lean-built and very tall man with black hair arranged into an outlandishly large pompadour, or Regent hairstyle, with tapered sideburns. He was chewing upon a small stick. Instead of the standard Shinigami uniform, he wore a waist-length white jacket that left most of his chest exposed. His attire was completed by a black hakama, a large yellow sash around his waist, and a pair of sandals. Upon reaching the orb in front of which Akihiko stood, the men dropped to a knee and bowed their heads, and the girl gave a simple bow. "Ichigo Kurosaki, meet my daughter Shirori Urahara," Akihiko said, and I stepped forward. The girl looked at me and my brown eyes met her golden ones, and she looked away, bowing quickly. "Nice to meet you, Ichigo Kurosaki-sama," she said, not looking up. "Urahara?" I asked. "Yes, you are confused?" he asked. "Well, I know Kisuke Urahara. Any relation?" I asked. "Yes, the Urahara family has been under my direct control since the beginning of the Seriidii. In fact, it was they who discovered Sekiseki, and it was also they who created the blueprints for the Seriidii," he said, smiling. "Now then, Shirori, you'll be going with Kurosaki-san and his family, as it appears the Godai 13 need help," he said to his daughter. "Why yes, Oto-sama, I'll leave immediately," she said, bowing. "First, Kurosaki-san must get his Zanpakuto. You and Nemea can help him with this if necessary," he informed. The dark-skinned man smirked, and made a follow-me motion. I followed him, and soon we were standing in front of a pit. "Dodge right," my hollow said, and I did so to see Nemea fall on his face. "Yeah, no," I said, "just give me a blank Zanpakuto, and I'll show you my way of doing things," I said, and he nodded, handing me a katana. "You'll know what the phrase is when you hold the Zanpakuto," Anjetsu had said. I breathed in deeply, and then exhaled. "Blanket them in darkness, Anjetsu," I yelled. Normal. Thinking/writing/flashback, Zanpakuto, hollow/wizard with mask. Chapter 2, Shiori's POV. I looked at the mass of golden Ryatsu with confusion. Just like that, but the only people that could do so were me and Tusama? I asked myself. He's a hybrid as well. He feels similar to your Tusan in composition, though on a much smaller scale, since your Tusan has a god from it inside him. I'd put him on the Royal Guard's level right now if his Ryatsu has already become a physical substance. My Zanpakuto put in. When the Ryatsu died down, he was revealed to be in a Shinigami form, his human body a few feet away. He wore a amorphous black Shihakusho Kyber knife, with a grip at the base of the blade and a handle extending back from this about roughly the width and length of Ichigo's forearm. There was a thin, hollowed-out portion running along the back edge of the blade from the base to the middle of the blade. "He's rather cute," I noted absently, putting my index finger against my bottom lip thoughtfully. He smirked at the blade. "This feels much better, but I can't sit here all day, I'm ready to leave." "Knows what he wants, doesn't he?" my inner hollow asked. "Very true," my Zanpakuto answered. "Earth to Urahara-san." I was snapped out of my thoughts by the boy's hand waving in front of my face. "Oh right, sorry Kurosaki-sama, I was thinking, I'll lead you back to Oto-sama, Eniotsu-san," I called as we walked out, leaving the confused Zanpakuto maker. Ichigo's POV. Upon re-entering the Soul King's hall, I found him talking to two people. "Your job is as usual to keep Shirori from harm, no matter the cost," he ordered. Both figures were girls around my age. The first had large amber eyes and purple hair tied with a yellow ribbon in it, and wore a normal Shihakusho with a large red ribbon tied around her waist, and a golden badge bearing the Royal Guard symbol on her left arm. At her side was an ordinary katana with a red hilt and a square tsuba. The other was a short and petite woman with chin-length dark green hair and purplish-red eyes. She wore a short Shihakusho that only goes a little below her waist with a white band around the waist, and knee-high white socks. At her side an ordinary katana with a rectangular tsuba with a cross shape embossed on it. The hilt was colored a maroon red, and the sheath was black. She too wore a golden badge, but hers was on her right arm. "Hi Reo-sama," the second girl said. "I'll do my best," the first girl said. "Oh Shirori, meet your guards Senna Akiba and Nozomi Kujo," the Soul King said, smiling at his daughter. "I hope we get along," the green-haired one said. "Same here," the purple-haired one said cheerfully. "Guards?" I asked. "Yes, I can't let my little girl go without protection, she's a princess after all," he said. "Okay then," I said, deciding not to say anything more. "Now go and return home, your Tusan and siblings are waiting," he said, and a portal opened before us. I gave a polite bow. "Ladies first," I said. "Okay," Senna said, walking through. Nozomi then pushed Shori through, and I followed after, sending one last look at Akihiko. "I'll protect her if necessary, I swear it to you," I promised. The next day, third-person POV. The students of Ichigo's class were surprised when Oki informed them of a new student, Shirori, but it was the spiritually aware that noticed two things. The first was that Ichigo's power was actually suppressed, and the second was that when the group, minus Ichigo, saw her, they first felt the normal, and then suddenly primordial, Fear gripped them as her eyes changed for a brief second to silver on black sclera, then back to their normal golden. She sat in a seat close to the door, and soon began drawing, unconcerned by the glare she was receiving from Yuri Ishida. After school she walked outside and began waiting at the entrance as Ichigo finished getting his things together. Orihime, noticing her waiting, walked over, ignoring the primordial fear coursing through her. "Hey there, what are you waiting for?" she asked conversationally. "I am waiting for Kurosaki-san," Shori answered, stuttering and shyly kicking the dirt. "Kurosaki-kun?" Orihime asked. "Yes, I'm currently staying with him under my two-sama's orders," she informed. "Who's your two-san?" Orihime asked. She opened her mouth to answer but suddenly found a blue arrow in her face. "Who are you really? What are you? Shinigami? Hello? Arankar?" he asked. "Ishida." The Quincy turned his head to see Ichigo running over, but was too late. There were now two Zanpakuto ready to take off his head, held by Nozomi and Senna. Shirori quickly hid behind Ichigo, while Yuri let his bow dissipate. "You aren't allowed to point your weapon at Hime-sama," Nozomi informed. "Guys, this is Shirori Urahara, daughter of the Reo and princess of the Tsuruitai," Ichigo informed. "A princess?" Orihime asked. "Yes, it is our duty to protect her as her guards," Senna explained. With that, Ichigo told his friends of his meeting with the Soul King, while Shirori continued her earlier drawing. "So that explains it," Ichigo finished a half-hour later. "The Reo is making you his heir?" Yuri asked. "Yes, that reminds me," Ichigo said, standing up and pulling back his sleeve. This caused the pendant to dangle in the air as it was covered in blue ryatsu and formed into a bow. The others jumped back and Yuri's mouth dropped open. "How? When?" he asked. "In order, my Okayasan was a Quincy, and ever since I gained my powers," Ichigo answered. "What do you mean?" he asked. "My Zanpakuto's name was never Zangetsu," Ichigo replied. "Eh?" the Quincy asked. "Zangetsu was actually the spirit of my Quincy power, his true name being Shutsenjul," Ichigo said. Ichigo looked at the ever-quiet daughter of the Soul King to find her nodding off. "I'd better get her home. Senna, you and Nozomi check for any signs of Aizen or anything suspicious," Ichigo ordered, putting the unconscious princess on his back, and he began walking home. The day after, the spiritually aware among the Karakura High students were readying to go home once more, and Ichigo had just left with Shirori when Orihime noticed something. "Hey Shiorihime-chan, forgot these," she said, holding 3 books in her arms. Yuryu walked over and took a book, The Royal Family and Related Subjects. Yuryu read the title. Known Zanpakuto of the Royal Guard past and present," Chad said, holding another of the books, Drawings and Music. Orihime read her book's title. "We better head over and return these. I'll read this along the way," Yuryu said. He received a grunt of agreement from Chad and they both began looking over their respective book in hand. As the 3 looked in the books walking toward Ichigo's house, Yuryu was the first to say something. "So the Reo has quite a few connections." "Yes, he does." The 3 looked up to see Nozomi standing in front of them. "I was going to get those books for Shiori-sama, thank you," she said, and in a burst of shunpa the books were gone, and so was she. Was night, and I was getting ready to go on patrol when a pulse of ryatsu garnered my attention. Just like that of the 2 before that beat me, Yami and Ulquiorra. It felt like a hollow with Shinigami mixed in, just like a reverse of my own before, which now had a more natural mixture of Shinigami, hollow, and Quincy. When a group of ryatsu signatures began heading out, I looked around but couldn't find my badge. "Ichigo, what are you waiting for?" a familiar voice asked. I turned. "Rukia? I'll explain later. Long story short, a group of reinforcement have arrived for you. We were supposed to get here a few days ago but couldn't open a senkamin," she informed in a rushed fashion. "Okay, just can't find my badge," I informed. "You mean this?" I looked up to see Shirori coming through the door holding the badge in her hands. "Thanks," I said, reaching for it, but she moved it out of reach before holding it in front of her mouth. "Cease monitoring Ichigo Kurosaki by order of the Reo," she stated. I looked at her confused until a reply came from the badge. "Who is this speaking?" The voice of Mayuri Kuratsuchi said. "Shirori Urahara of the Soul Palace, member of the royal family, daughter of the Reo," she informed. And if I don't believe you?" he asked. "Mayuri Kuratsuchi, if you want confirmation, tell Yamamoto-kun that Ichigo-kun is still calling him on cheating," she said. "Very well," he said, interested, and it cut off connection. "See, creepy man," she stated and crushed the badge between her fingers. "What?" I asked. "Ignore it. I'll have to give Yamamoto-kun a stern talking to in Tusama's place," she said thoughtfully. I couldn't help but imagine her doing just that, making my hollow and Angetsu laugh. "Ichigo?" Rukia asked. I'll introduce you later. By the way, where are Sena and Nozomi? I asked. Nozomi-chan went to report to Ichigo-kun and Sena-chan went with her to get my clothes and the mod's Soul Kiryu-chan was making for me. She answered. You're without a guard? I yelled. Eh? What about you? She asked. I'm not very qualified. I said. Eh? The princess asked. I'm a frontline fighter. A guard is someone who will be in the back to keep you out of the fight. I said. Oh. She said, looking down. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. She said quickly. Hey Rukia, mind if I put you as her temporary guard? I asked. Guard? Why would she need it? Rukia asked. She'll explain, the Ryatsus are moving. I said. How do I exit my body? I asked. Just visualize yourself in your Shinigami form. Shutsenjul informed. I did so, and suddenly my body fell on the bed. There we go. I said, jumping out of the window. Rukia's POV. I blinked. Ichigo learned to control his Ryatsu. He sealed his Zanpakuto. So, why do you need guards? I asked. Oh, sorry, I should introduce myself. The girl said, giving a bow. I'm Shori Urahara, daughter of the Reo, princess of the Soul Society. She said. Urahara? Reo? Princess? I asked, and she explained she was the daughter of the Reo and one of his most loyal royal guard members and that she knowingly had a guard when she went in the palace. Okay, I'll guard you as best I can. I promised. She nodded and followed me as I led her outside. We'll walk towards the battles to see how things are. I informed as we continued. Soon we walked to see a Erinka waiting for us. Oh, a little Shinigami on her own. He said, smirking. On my own? I asked, looking around, not seeing Shiori anywhere. I lost her? I yelled. Shiori's POV. When I noticed I was no longer behind Rukia and instead was in a forest. Oh, what brings you here, little Shinigami? The speaker was a tall, muscular, dark-skinned Erinka with noticeably large lips. The remnants of his hollow mask consisted of a row of bony spikes along the crest of his head, forming something similar to a mohawk hairstyle along with a pair of skull-shaped earrings and a thick bony necklace. He was also bald and has golden yellow eyes. His uniform consisted of a long Mandarin-style Erinka jacket with a small opening at his chest area. He wore a white hakama, although his sandals resembled traditional martial arts training shoes. He also has 3 triangle-shaped tattoos on his chin and 4 lines running down from his forehead directly above his eyes that end with dots appearing as exclamation points. These were on both sides of his head, giving him a total of 8 lines. Who is asking? I asked, acting calm. I am Zamari Ruros of Aizen-sama's Espada, Septima Espada. He said proudly. Sosuke-kun would put numbers from strongest to weakest, so I'd guess there are 10 of you. Doesn't matter, I'll just be quick, wouldn't want you to be a problem. I said, summoning my Zanpakuto to my hands, and with my next words, damned him, captivate them, Kagamiheim. The next day, third-person POV. After defeating the Erinkars, Shiori showed up with a bag of suckers and Ichigo worriedly scolded her until she looked about to cry. Then it was explained to the others in the group who she was, and nice to meet Yu. She stuttered, looking down, still teary-eyed from Ichigo's scolding. Oh, she's so cute. Ranjaku said, hugging the girl. I see, can't be breathe. She choked. The strawberry blonde lieutenant let go, and the princess nodded after a few breaths. Sorry it took so long. Kiryu-chan made some candy for you and I needed help carrying it. Sena called, walking into the room with 2 large bags in her hands. In the end, our Zanpakuto were needed to carry them all. Nozomi added. Shiori stood and smiled. Thank you so much, I've already been banned from buying candy at the store. She said, pouting. Wait, since when? Why? Ichigo asked. Haim-sama consumes large amounts of sweets on a weekly basis, and was banned due to her cleaning out their candy aisle. Sena answered, laughing. How does she stay so skinny if she eats that much candy? Ranjika asked. I'm not telling. Shiori said, and took a green sucker from one bag. Green apple. She said. Later that day, Ichigo's POV. I don't understand, Kurosaki-sama. Why do you not want to go? Shiori asked. 'Cause I don't trust taking you alone to these guys. I replied. It's not like they could beat you. Kagamiheim-chan already classifies you on the level of people like Yamamoto-kun, so you could easily win against them if they were to attack. She informed. And they won't be able to attack me anyway. She added vaguely. What do you mean? I asked. Don't worry. She said and smiled. Fine, we'll go later. I sighed. She nodded and left the room. King, I wouldn't worry too much. Mai Hollow said. I concur. While you are strong, she has the advantage of a closer relationship with her Zanpakuto and Hollow than you do with us because she's had many years to learn and grow. Shutsenjul informed. He's right. And Jetsu said. Fine, I'll try, I replied mentally. After a few hours I followed Shori as she noticed a barrier around a warehouse in town, and we came to the conclusion it was the masked army or wizards as Shori said was the official term. Upon reaching an ordinary warehouse that seemed abandoned, Shori looked it over and smiled. A barrier made from wizard Ryatsu, she informed. And? I asked. I can get us through, she said, and she covered her hand in white Ryatsu and clawed the air and a large glowing barrier around the warehouse with a hole now torn in it. Done, she said, smiling. We walked through and into the warehouse. I opened the door and walked into the warehouse with my hands in my pockets, and Shori followed behind, pulling out some gum and beginning to chew it. Well, you came, care to explain how you just broke that keto barrier? I looked up at Shinji. You'll have to ask Shiori. I don't know how she did it, I replied, shrugging. Well, Shiori-chan? He asked. I'll have to truly introduce us Kurosaki-sama, she said. Whatever. I sighed, wondering why she always called me that. I am Shiori Urahara, daughter of the Reo and princess of the Soul Society, half Shinigami half hollow, and I'll keep that secret for a little longer, she said. And that is Ichigo Kurosaki, heir of the Reo, she added. Daughter and heir of the Reo? He asked. Yes, Tsu-sama has decided to make Kurosaki-sama his heir one way or another, she said, smiling. So how were you able to get through the barrier? He asked. I have the ability to manipulate the Ryatsu of other Shinigami/hollow hybrid, she informed. I see, he replied. Now if anyone needs me, I'll be over here, she said, jumping to a higher floor, and a white chair materialized in front of her, which she sat and then pulled out a book which she began to read. I smirked. How about we start some training? I asked, exiting my body. What? He asked, and I said nothing but jumped forward. I smiled as we took a break, and I did my school work which Shiori had brought for my sake. Since yesterday I could now hold my hollow mask on for 12 hours, as Hiyori Saragaki and I found out when we got into a fight. After some talks with my inner spirits, I found out that my hollow was in Ajuchas had the abilities of a powerful Zero individual to me, high-speed regeneration, and a power which we couldn't yet reach, but we knew it was there. I learned several useful things from Shutsenjul, such as Ryatsu absorption, a technique allowing me to use Ryatsu to control my body when it is damaged. Finally, from Enjetsu I learned my Zanpakuto was of the rare dark type, allow it to control the darkness of the world, where the every other case of a dark type Zanpakuto wielder, known to Zanpakuto, became a member of the Royal Guard. Ichigo! Breaks over! Hiyori yelled, smirking as I stood readying Enjetsu's sealed form. Meanwhile, Aizen's POV. I frowned. Zomari was defeated? By who? I asked. It is unknown, Aizen-sama. I was unable to get closer. When I tried, I got a chill, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get closer. My body would take a step back against my will. I was able to detect her Ryatsu, which without shirkai matched that of Harabel-sama. The scout Arankar answered, bowing. I see. Dismissed, I stated, and he left, bowing. Ulquiorra, I said, and the black-haired figure of my fourth espada entered the room. Yes, Aizen-sama? He asked emotionlessly as usual. I want you to grab a second person when you go to get the girl. Another girl has captured my attention. Take her immediately and give her no chance to escape. If you have to knock her out, I ordered. Tell me who to look for, and it shall be done, he said, nodding. White hair, golden eyes, and a Ryatsu similar to Harabel. I detailed. Very well, he said, nodding. Also, don't attack her directly. Take her out as quietly as possible, since she may be able to defeat her, and it would do well to get something from Sazil that could stop one from using Ryatsu, I said informatively. Of course, Aizen-sama, he said. Dismissed, I informed. He bowed and left. I'll have to find out who that is. But first, looks like I have need of the Seiki room, I said, smiling. The next day, Ichigo's POV. I paused in my fighting when I felt a familiar Ryatsu. It's him, Grimjow Jagerjax. I'm going to fight. I'll be back later, I said. Okay, Ichigo, just remember your time limit is 5 hours now. BTU, don't pull the fight on forever, Shinji warned. PFT, I won't even need shirkai with the mask, I said, smirking as I ran toward the battle. Meanwhile, Oriheim's POV. I looked down after Yukitake Jeshiro. Rukia's white-haired captain told me to wait, but looked up when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It's okay, Oriheim-chan. I'll stay with you. Sena-chan, please go report the new events to Ichigo-kun, and Nozomi-chan go with Rukia-chan to help the Shinigami in Karakura, and check on Kurosaki-sama. If you can, your Zanpakuto would be useful to help the others. He should be fine though. I'll wait with Oriheim-chan. I'll be fine, Shirori said kindly. But Shiori-sama, if anything happens to you. Nozomi stopped mid-sentence when Shiori looked at her, and a flash of silver in her eyes made the Royal Guard member freeze. I have given my order, follow it. Shiori said her normal tone, but the words caused Nozomi and Senna to shiver and both ran off, Nozomi grabbing Rukia as she ran. Ichigo's POV, there you are. I said to the blue-haired Espada who was now missing his arm. I've been looking for you. He said, and I've been waiting to kick your ass again. I said smirking. I'd ask where your arm was, but I don't care, knowing people like you'll lie about it to make yourself seem stronger. I added, moving my blade in front of me. He jumped at me and I dodged to the side. Getsuga Tensho. I said, shooting off a Getsuga into him, carving a small cut into him. Not as large as I'd like, but your hero is strong. Too bad you'll be unable to try mine. I said, smirking as I summoned my hollow mask. Siro sneezes. I said, in a black Siro with red linings formed on my outstretched fingers, blasting out and barely missing taking off his other arm. Oriheim's POV. We were running through the Damai with the 2 guards charged with guarding us when a motionless voice stated, "What's this, only 2 guards?" Suddenly Shiroi collapsed and was caught, the cause being the black-haired and green-eyed Erenkar from before. As he held Shiroi up and hefted her onto his shoulder, he sighed. That took all my strength to do, and it was barely enough. If it wasn't for these cuffs I would have been unable to do so. He said, and the sound of chains moving revealed a pair of shackles on Shiori's hands, the short chains holding her hands behind her back. One drew his blade and the Erenkar simply shot off a red ball of energy, both of them. I summoned my healing abilities and the yellow domes covered them, healing their injuries. The Erenkar then began to speak of me coming with him to Hueco Mundo. It could only be there, and how it was futile, and if I tried my friends would die. A/N. I'm sorry, but I really don't want to type this speech. So if you don't know it, just look up Ulquiorra's speech to Oriheim on YouTube. For some reason Aizen wants your power, so come with me or I'll be forced to hurt her. He said with a one-handed gesture at Shiori. Fine. I said, walking towards him. As long as Shiori-chan lives. I thought. Ichigo's POV. I smiled as Grimmjow as he ran at me. He'd been surprised when I used Zero, and now due to the damage he had burns and no longer had a jacket on due to its destruction. Just as he was about to finish what sounded like a release phrase, he was stopped by the green-eyed Erenkar. Our mission is complete. We're leaving, he said, and they were hit with a bright light and were pulled back into Hueco Mundo. Rayo's POV. I was monitoring Hueco Mundo when I felt a familiar spike in the world's own power ratio composition. What is Shiori doing in Hueco Mundo? I asked myself. Well, she should be fine after all. I trailed off and went back to sorting problems in the balance of souls. The next day, Ichigo's POV. I walked into Oriheim's house with Toshiro to find a large screen and the others, Renji, Rukia, Ikaku, Yumachika, Nozomi, and Ranjiku waiting. After ordering Ranjiku to patch him through, Toshiro stood and waited until the screen changed from static to the face of Jushiro Yukitake. I was looking for the Sateicho, Yukitake Taicho. The child-appearing captain said. I had him patch you through to me. I was the last to see Oriheim Inoue and Shirori Urahara-sama before they disappeared in the Senkamin on the way to the living world. He said. I tensed. Explain. The 2 guards I sent with them came back alive after an encounter with an Erenkar whom incapacitated them both, as well as Shiori-sama. It is possible Oriheim was abducted as well. He said. What about Senna? I asked. She sent her off to report, and she is with us now. He explained. I see. I replied. I need for aid in a mission to get her back. I said. I'm afraid we cannot do that for you, substitute Shinigami Ichigo Kurosaki. If that kind of bargaining chip is in Aizen's hands, a team will be put together to bring her back, but you are a last defense, therefore you cannot leave. The Sateicho said, making Nozomi look at me pointedly, apparently not okay with aid denied to me when my rank is above his. So Shiroi didn't tell him about the Rayo's idea yet, just as I asked, but they'll know now. I thought. I am not asking. I want aid and you'll give me what I ask. I replied. What makes you think you can say such, Ichigo Kurosaki? The Sateicho asked, offended. Nozomi. I said. Ichigo-sama was proclaimed by the Rayo to be his heir, and thus he has all right to request aid, and his orders are to be taken as if from the Rayo himself. Nozomi explained. These words come from whom exactly? Sateicho asked. The Rayo himself. She answered. Very well then, who would you wish us to gather? He asked. I thought carefully, and after asking for the opinion of my inner spirits, I nodded. I wish for Byakuya, Kenpachi, Unhana and her Fukiteko to be dispatched, and I will go as soon as possible, and Rukia, Rinji, and my friends will be coming with me. Senna and Nozomi are to stay with the Godai 13 until Shiroi and Oriheim are retrieved. I said. Very well, all others return to the Suriidai. he ordered. Yes, Suteicho. The other said. So Ichigo, gonna open a Garganta? My hollow asked. Not here, I'll go to Urahara's, that way I can get whatever he can offer, I replied. Aizen sat in his throne smiling as the two girls walked forward. Oriheim stood unsure of her safety, but was much more expressive of such than Shori, who stood quietly, her eyes switching between silver and golden every second and unknown to the other inhabitants in the room. Her Ryatsu was breaking down the shackles binding her. Welcome to Las Noches, our palace, Aizen said. I must say, I know your name Oriheim Inoue, but I haven't the pleasure of knowing your name, miss. Aizen added, curiousness glinting in his eyes. Shirori Urahara, Shinigami/Hollow Hybrid. Shirori said carefully. Oh, any relation to Kisuke Urahara? He asked. Yes, he is my uncle, Shirori answered. I see. Care to tell me how your very presence makes those below Vasto Lords step back from you? Out of pure instinct you cause all but the most evolved hollows to want to run from your very presence. How you even make the Vasto Lords tense? He asked. I will not answer that question, she said coldly. Oh well, I have a way to make you talk, he said, and reached into his robes and pulled out white box. I had this made just an hour ago. With this I will make your hollow instincts rip and attack you from the inside out, he said, jumping down and walking forward. Shirori stepped back, her eyes remaining golden for a second longer, only for Ulquiorra to step in her way and lightly push her forward. Just as she tried to turn, Aizen reached her and placed the box against her forehead. Gah! I am HHHHHHH. Shiori's hollow yelled in her, and she mimicked the screams of agony out loud as the box began to pull on her hollow Ryatsu, and she felt as if her soul was being ripped apart. No! Shiori yelled. Ready to tell me? He asked. Make it stop, she yelled. Aizen smirked. I'll have the information soon. The unknown variable could be a problem. He removed the box and Shiori dropped to the ground, panting, her hold on her Ryatsu barely intact as a white glow surrounded her. I'm the creator of Hueco Mundo, Okayasin of the Hollows and of Shinigami, she said, and began coughing up blood. How are you Okayasin of both Hollows and Shinigami? How did you create Hueco Mundo? Aizen asked. I am the reason Shinigami and Hollows exist. Because I exist, so do Shinigami and Hollow hybrids, Shirori said through her coughing. Hueco Mundo came into being at the same time I did, thus was created by me, she added, and this sentence was punctuated by her coughing up even more blood, and everything went dark for the hybrid. I see. Harabel-san, go take her to one of the Seiki rooms, Aizen ordered. Shiori's POV. I woke to find myself in a spacious room with a smooth floor made of the same material as the rest of the castle, just as the walls and roof were, but with a simple push of Ryatsu I noticed the room was insulated with Seiki. Guess I'm waiting, I said, and began looking around. I found they had yet to take my Zanpakuto, but since I still had on the shackles they obviously believed they would hold me. I continued to look around. I soon sighed and sat down on what looked like a couch. You seem unworried. I looked up to see a olive-skinned Erenkar with aqua eyes, thick eyelashes, and short golden blonde hair, which she had in a messy style with 3 braided locks. She wore a variation of the Erenkar jacket with a high collar, which covered the lower part of her face downward, while bearing a good portion of the lower half of her large assets. The jacket had a zipper running along its entire length. It had a beige air filter on either side just below the trim. The jacket sleeves completely envelop her arms, terminating in black glove-like extensions at her extremities, resembling the appearance of a cat's paw. Why would I be? None of you will hurt me, and Sosuke Aizen has no reason to harm me lest I die in hybrids like you with me, thus ruining his plans, I replied. I see, you're rather tame for the Okayasin of Hollows, she said. And? I asked. Tell me, what do you fight for? What is your purpose for fighting? She asked. When I fight to keep my friends and family safe, I answered. Ichigo's POV. We had just split up and I was going through a corridor with the small Erenkar Nell after defeating a Erenkar named Dordoni. It was crazy that my power had grown so much I could easily defeat even Espada-level Erenkar in a sealed state, without the mask. I ran ahead hoping to get some information from the next person I saw. I soon found myself in a large corridor, and I stopped to rest. We should run into someone soon, Nell, I said, smiling at the child Erenkar. I see, so you are looking for someone. I turned to see the very same green-eyed Erenkar. Ulquiorra, I said, nodding in acknowledgement. Ichigo Kurosaki, he said, he himself nodding. I'm different from before, care to see? I asked. I noticed such. First I want to ask what you've done to become as strong as you have, he said. I've found my true power, let me show you, I said, summoning my mask. Very well, he said. Shiori's POV. I smirked as I felt a familiar Ryatsu spike. Sorry, but it is time I left, I said, and the shackles disintegrated. I disappeared in a burst of sonido and left the room. Ichigo's POV. I blocked another attack from Okuiora and smiled. So Okuiora, you're strong, right? I asked as we continued to clash. I am the Corda Espada, he answered. Well, care to help me test my power? I asked. What do you mean? The Espada asked. Blanket them in shadows, I said as my Zanpakuto began to shift into Shurikai and Jetsu. I yelled and shadows covered me from sight, and I slashed, banishing them away to reveal me smirking with my Shurikai. Well, King looks like he's surprised, my hollow said as Okuiora's eyes widened. Well, how about we show him our power? I asked. I jumped forward and slashed. He blocked with his Zanpakuto and I smirked. Getsuga Tensho, I said, and he was engulfed by a golden Getsuga Tensho, and was thrown back into a group of pillars, breaking each one. How can you cause so much damage with one slash? Okuiora asked, his clothing in tatters and his body healing a few seconds later. I have that much power, Okuiora cipher, and I will use my power to defeat Aizen, I said, smiling. I see, he said, and rushed past me. I followed slowly and found him waiting several miles away. I stepped over. You're readying for something, I noted. Yes, Ichigo Kurosaki, I cannot defeat you like this, so I must release my Zanpakuto, but I cannot do so in Las Noches, he said. Okay, I said, nodding. Enclose, Murcielago, he said, unleashing a black and green burst of Ryatsu, which fell around him as green rain. Soon he finished his transformation with a bat-like appearance. Large, black bat wings had formed on his back, his hair was longer and wilder, and the remains of his hollow mask centered atop his head, with two large horns extending outward to the sides towards the front. The lines on his face became black, broader, and more triangular, and his fingernails lengthened. His Arrancar attire became more form-fitting and closed at the top, becoming more like a robe towards the bottom. Aizen's POV. I blinked when Harabel joined us in the Garganta, stating the Urahara girl had gotten away and was heading towards Okuiora. Well, let us continue and deal with that when we get back, I decided. Ichigo's POV. I blocked the glowing lance Okuiora held. Well, you did well, but I'm still stronger. I have grown powerful due to training, almost non-stop training, I said, smirking. Yeah, fighting us every time you were in class or at home, my hollow said, laughing. Ichigo-kun. I turned to see Shori standing a mile away, walking confidently toward us. Shori, when did you stop calling me Kurosaki-sama? I'm not complaining, but you're acting different, I asked, confused. Ever since I was younger, I was always treated as a glass cannon, and I've found myself acting as such. But now, I've learned something. I can be much more. Leave this one to me, Ichigo-kun. Orihime-chan won't save herself, she said, smirking. Okay, I said, nodding. So I will be fighting the Okayasin of All Hallows? I asked rhetorically. She smirked. Well, then I guess I need to show you why it is feared that I will lose myself like my Oni-san did, the Mother of Hollows and Shinigami said, drawing her Zanpakuto from its white sheath. Captivate them, Kagami-hime, she yelled, and the Zanpakuto shifted from the katana it was to a odachi with a rectangular tsuba, gray wrappings, and a chain ending in a small mirror. Okuiora cipher, prepare yourself. I am much more dangerous than Sosuke Aizen, she said, smirking. I formed a lance and threw it, watching as she did nothing to stop it. Suddenly a sword went through my chest, and I blinked, turning my head to see behind me. There she stood, a grin that was almost sadistic on her face, and she twisted the blade, ripping it from my side. I coughed up some blood and held my side as it healed. I looked at her blankly. Surely you must have known that wouldn't do anything? I asked, confused. Of course I knew, but I am not going to kill you. I have no need to. You will not be a problem, she said. I rushed forward and swung my Zanpakuto, but as if not even moving, she blocked my blade, holding it between her index and middle finger. Stop this and fight me at full power, or you'll just be an annoyance, she said in a bored tone. I felt a sudden feeling of anger, surprised by the emotion I felt. I attacked once more, and she lazily swung her blade to clash with my own. I sonidoed away to observe her when she turned, and as if teleporting, she was right in front of me with the hum of sonido accompanying her. I barely dodged a slash from her blade, and she sighed. Even when I hold back, you cannot make a challenge for me. Perhaps I should change that, she said, and a barrage of slashes that I was unable to block hit me, and I felt each wound made heal, only to be reopened along with several others being created. How is she so fast? And her sonido, it was as if she didn't even move, I asked myself. Pathetic, she said, and I jumped out of the way of a lazy slash. She is too strong for me to fight in only this form. I can't use anything like Siro or Bala cause she may be able to stop them. I thought and dodged another attack. I concentrated on my power and pulled as much of it as I could from my body, covering myself in Ryatsu as I transformed. Resurrección, segunda etapa, I said. While I retained my black wings, my long white coat is gone, revealing my slender white torso, with my bare chest patterned so my hollow hole, which has become larger, appears to be dripping black, blood-like liquid. My waist becomes covered in something similar to black fur, which covers my arms and legs. My fingers grow claw-like extensions, and my feet resemble talons. The irises of my eyes turned yellow, and the scara became green. The tear-like marks under my eyes increased in size and turned black. My mask was completely gone, and I had 2 large bad ears. Finally, I can stop holding back, she said. Rushing forward, I dodged and summoned my arrow-like green lance of energy and blocked her strike, and our weapons met with a rush of white, hers, and green, mine, Ryatsu. Mizu no Hansha. I blinked and turned quickly to see her charging a slash of pure Ryatsu around her blade. Kyozo, she said simply when a slash came at me, and I moved to block it only for the slash to come from behind me, and I jumped to the side before it could cut me in half. Thanks for showing me your power, now sleep, she said, and suddenly I felt a pain in my neck as everything went black. Shiori's POV. I nodded to the black-haired woman who had knocked Okuiora out. Thank you, Yuichiro Kenpachi, I said. I have taken the name Retsu no Hana now Haim-sama, she said, nodding in acknowledgement. Keep him alive, Retsu-chan. I'd love to have some of these Arrancar alive. I could have my own little group, I said, smiling and thinking of the helpfulness of having my own subordinates that I would share with no one all my own. Sure, Ori. I turned to see Ichigo running over with the rest of his group, including Oriheim. Oh, Ichigo-kun, ready to go. We have a battle to change the tide of, I said, smiling. How could you two change the tide of an entire battle? Renji asked. Simple, Abarai-kun. We have backup, of course. You'll only be taking up positions that are losing strength, but I have a little advantage on our side, I said, vaguely, walking over to the green-haired child Arrancar that used to be the third Espada. I picked her up, smiling kindly. What do you mean? And we're not taking Nell, she could get hurt, Ichigo said. Don't worry, now let us go so I can reclaim a certain throne of mine, I said vaguely once more. Fine then, Ichigo said. Please open out Garganta, Shirori. Right, I said, and with nothing more than a look the side of Garganta opened beside me. I smiled as I walked through and was followed by the others. Ichigo's POV. I looked at Shirori confused. She's worrying me. She said she had an advantage for us, and then she spoke of reclaiming a throne, but what throne is she reclaiming? I asked mentally. I don't know, but I have a feeling that I should. My hollow said contemplatively. I myself have a feeling as well. And Jetsu noted. I could say, but you knowing the information wouldn't help you anyway. Shutsenjul said, bored. Before I could ask more, we exited the Garganta and I was flying towards Aizen, yelling, Getsuga Tensho, as the golden moon fang charged and left my blade the moment I slashed. Okay then, Nell-chan, I give you some of my power, so return to what you once were, Shirori said, making me look back as the child Arrancar was replaced by a well-endowed woman. Now step back and protect the injured, she ordered. Okay, she said, confused, but did so, taking Oriheim to the injured. Meanwhile, the others went to replace those who were exhausted. I watched as Shirori walked towards the short squad, 2 Captain Soifin and a skeletal Arrancar appearing similar to be a Lich King. Soifin's POV. I looked at where I was missing an arm and growled. I was about to look for a different way of attack when Ichigo Kurosaki and his group arrive and a child Arrancar turn into an adult. The Soul King's daughter began walking over, stopping around 10 feet from Toshiro Hitsugaya and the third Espada's fight. Tear-chan, now is the time. Go get your fraction up, dust them off, and help the Godiai, she said to the Espada. Yes, ma'am, I'll begin now, Oju-sama, the Espada said, jumping off from the fight, surprising everyone including Aizen. She continued walking over, and when she saw I was missing an arm, she smiled and then put her thumb to one of her canine teeth and bit down until she began to blood, and then put a few drops on my shoulder. Then in seconds I had an arm once more. She then turned to my opponent, Segunda Espada, Berrigan Leisenbairn. So, you are the one who calls himself the god of Hueco Mundo? She asked. Of course, and you are? He asked. Oh, you must not have been there when I was kidnapped by Aizen. I am Shirori Urahara, daughter of the Rayo, Okayasin of Hollows and Shinigami, creator of Hueco Mundo, goddess of Hueco Mundo, she said. Impossible, I am the god of Hueco Mundo, he said. Yes, you are the one who sits on my throne then? I'll fix that, she growled, gripping her Zanpakuto's hilt. You dare challenge me? He asked. Suddenly she rushed forward. No, don't, I tried to yell. Respira. The segunda espada said, and his cloud of age-dilating Ryatsu at the daughter of the Soul King, and the princess smirked, grabbing the mirror at the end of the chain on her Zanpakuto, and the purple Ryatsu cloud was absorbed into the mirror. Then from the mirror came a shock wave, and the segunda espada was blasted by a concentrated shock wave into nothing. You are stupid to think yourself a god, and now you no longer breathe, she said with a bored tone. See, that is her Zanpakuto's ability, reflection, Aizen said. There was a sudden hum a second later, and she appeared right in front of Aizen with a sadistic grin similar to that my hollow would sometimes have. There's a lot more to the soul of the Okayasen of the Shinigami, Shori said. Oh? He asked. Kyozo, she stated, lifting her blade above her head. What? But that's Aizen was interrupted when she yelled. Getsuga Tensho. A white Getsuga came from her blade as she slashed. He blocked with his Zanpakuto, and was beginning to be pushed back. I jumped behind him, and she nodded to me. Getsuga Tensho. We yelled in unison, and my golden moon fang met her white one as Aizen failed to completely block them both, resulting in a small explosion. Shatter. Shori said, her smile now reaching from ear to ear. What? Aizen asked, looking around. Well, Sosuke Aizen, Kyozo, just like its name means, is mirroring any technique, and you just saw its release, so I can use your own ability against you. See, to use an ability I have to understand it, and how it works, complete hypnosis while powerful is quite simple, like yourself, she said, and Aizen began looking everywhere at once. I know what you're thinking. I'm using the power now to make it seem as if I have an army of Vasta Lord Hollows. Who's to say I didn't created them after all? I can. I'm not called the Okayasen of all Hollows just because of creating them. I am the first official Hollow and first official Shinigami. I can create both. After all, 2 of the 5 great noble clans have my blood in their veins. Though my Hollow power has steadily grown smaller and smaller in percentage, it is my Shinigami blood that they have. There are several Hollows I created in your ranks as well, she said, her smile lessening to a small prideful smirk. Of course you're using Kyoka Sujetsu's power. Why would you call on such and not use it? He asked. Because its power is worthless in this fight. I just want you to know how unneeded it is, she said. The ear to ear sadistic smile came back, and suddenly there was 100 powerful Hollows around us, each humanoid in some form. Attack, she ordered, and the Hollows all rushed forward. Aizen began swinging his Zanpakuto, fighting off the Vasta Lords. Shirori ignored the fight and walked over to a fight between Kairaku and a brown-haired Espada wielding dual pistols. She grabbed the arm of the Espada and he whirled around to hit her with the gun, but she stopped it with her fingers. I ran over to hear. Is that any way to greet me, Coyote-kun? She asked kindly. I didn't know it was you. I must say you are a great actor, Shirchan, he said, smirking. Yeah, please teach me, Shirchan, a female voice said, coming from the gun. Hello to you as well, Lilinet-chan. Kairaku Taicho, please go and help detain Kenin Tosen, she said, adding an order to the brown-haired Squad 8 captain. Of course, Haim-sama, he said, going to do so. Care to explain what is going on, Shirori? I asked. Isn't it obvious? Some of the Espada work for me. It was I that allowed Coyote-kun here became unstable Arankar. I created him and the 3rd Espada, and Nell, she answered. Wait, you created Nell and these other 2 Espada? I asked. Yes, they were made from my Ryatsu and my blood, she said, and turned to the Arankar and whispered into his ear. He nodded and disappeared into a Garganta. Now, let's deal with Aizen, she said, and we ran back over to see Aizen defeat the last Vasta Lord, his body healing from the wounds he received and the Hogyoku in his chest. See, Aizen, you're not even a threat, Shirori said with a sadistic smile once again on her face. You act all high and mighty, but I am the one who will kill and replace the Reo, Aizen said confidently. Ha! You wouldn't even be able to do anything to the Reo. You wouldn't even get past the Royal Guard. Of course you'd have to do the impossible and beat me, Shori said. Really? He asked self-confidently. Among many things, your Zanpakuto is useless against me, she said, taking a step forward. Your power is irrelevant against me because you are threatening my 2-sama. Another step. And no one threatens my family, she yelled, taking 3 quick steps. Bankai! Byakuren Kagamehaim! Shirori yelled, now being hidden by her blinding white Ryatsu. When she was revealed, she now wielded a white Chikuto, with even the mirror on the end of the chain being a more reflective white. Besides the change of the blade, her clothing changed also. She now wore a white undershirt beneath a open white shihakusho, white gloves, and white boots, and a pair of white wings with lotus petals instead of feathers. With a loud crack, the wings spread and she lifted into the sky, leaving lotus petals to fall as she flew. Suddenly she folded the wings and rushed toward Aizen, who could only try to block, only for a blade to be stabbed into his chest from behind. I never dismiss Kyozo, she stated. He whirled around to decapitate her with his Zanpakuto, but she smirked as she fell back and he healed. Why so smug? Aizen asked. Because this is gonna hurt a lot, she said, and then I noticed a thin, almost unnoticeable cord attached to her blade. Tamashi no Ansei, she stated, and with a yank out of Aizen's body came 4 different things. The first was a black-haired version of himself with dark blue eyes that appeared as if he had nothing more to live for. The second was a skeleton wearing the same clothes he had. The third was a doppelganger of himself wearing golden and black. The final figure was Shinji as a Shinigami with long hair and a captain's Haori. Oh, this is rich, you, Sosuke Aizen fears solitude, failure, the power you are gaining, and Shinji Hirako? She asked incredulously. What? Of course not, he said. Oh, you're one of those people, you don't even acknowledge your fears, you believe yourself above that. Attack. She ended her sentence with an order which caused the 4 figures to attack Shinji's double using his hollow mask. The golden-wearing Aizen lazily swung his Kyoka Suigetsu, and the original tried to block and was being pushed back by the golden-wearing version. Meanwhile the skeleton and black-haired pair attacked from the sides and Shinji was running a circle around the group as Aizen blocked and dodged as much as he could. Shori smirked at me. Ichigo-kun, looks like you won't be needed to kill Aizen after all, I'm doing it, she said, rushing forward. It was then Aizen smirked, and just as she was about to hit him he turned and slashed, cutting into her. Blood spurted from the wound like a fountain. I watched as she fell and landed on the ground in a heap. He did that on purpose. My hollow yelled angrily. Calm down or you'll dash, and Jetsu was interrupted by my hollow mask forming on my face. Kick his ass, king, this is out Vasto Lord Mask, he said. Vasto Lord Mask? I asked. Before you were using a jutsus which is half of my power, now this is as much power as I can give you, he explained. Thanks, let's kick his ass, I said, feeling a sudden anger. I got into my stance holding my Zanpakuto in front of me horizontally and released my Ryatsu. Bankai, Kokurin Anjetsu, I said with silent fury in my tone. My black Ryatsu cloaked me and when it finished my transformation, blew away revealing. I now wielded a transparent black dado with a tsuba with 4 prongs bent out to form the shape of the kanji for ban with 3 protrusions along the blunt end of the sword, close to its tip. I now wore a black undershirt beneath my open black shihakusho. Held together by 3 X-shaped marks, it ended in a number of coattails. I also wore black gloves, with white X-shaped marks appear on both the gloves and my forearms. Oh Ichigo, you poor naive child, if the Reo's daughter couldn't beat me, what chance do you have? He asked. I won't lose to you, Sosuke Aizen, I said and walked forward slowly. Eh? He said, confused. I will not let you live. You want to use my town for your stupid idea. You kidnap my Oriheim and Shori, and then you hurt Shori. You won't survive long. I'll kill you. No one messes with my town, my friends, my family, I said. I grabbed the chain on the end of Anjetsu's hilt and threw the blade into the air, and then began spinning the blade as a black Getsuga began to form around the blade, getting bigger and bigger. Getsuga, I said, pulling, and the blade went behind me. Tensho! I yelled, yanking my Zanpakuto forward, and like a whip it sent the Getsuga off and it engulfed Aizen. I think it is time to use my technique, Ichigo, Anjetsu suggested. Okay then, I said as Aizen was revealed bleeding heavily and healing slower, but he also looked different now, having long mid-back length hair, and his eyes were now gray with purple sclera. So you've done well, Ichigo Kurosaki, but I will not lose to a human, he said. I am not just a human, Sosuke Aizen, I am Ichigo Kurosaki, Shinigami, Hollow, Quincy, and heir to the Reo, I said. You? The Reo made you his heir? He asked. Yes, I share the same race as the Reo, therefore I am the only one with the potential to replace him, I answered. Then I'll kill you, but first I'll let you watch as I use Karakura to create the Oken. Oh, how about I go finish off the girl as well? She's of little use to me, just like your Okayasin, he said. I froze. What? I asked. You didn't truly believe it was a coincidence that Grand Fisher just happened to be in Karakura? I sent him there. It was my orders that killed your Okayasin, he gloated, but I was already losing myself. The mask began to shift and change, falling from my face, not as a mask but as a white Anjetsu. On impulse I took the blade and stabbed it into my chest. Punish the wicked, Luna Inferno, I said as the blade punched a hole through my chest and then burst out, covering my body and then settling. I now stood in a new form. My hair had grown, now reaching down to my waist, and a hollow hole was present in my chest, decorated with markings stretching from the hole across my chest and shoulders. I also had retractable claws on my fingertips and toes, small, furry red tufts, 2 starting from my collarbone and stretching around my neck and 1 each on my wrists and ankles, and white skin. In this new form, I had a different hollow mask. It covered my entire head, and its markings were different, for it had 4 spike-shaped marks, 2 of them stopping by the forehead, and the other 2 stretching past the eyes and teeth, going past my chin and joining with the marks on my chest. There were small marks resembling a heart, but with the top and bottom open, extending from the inner corners of my eyes. The mask featured 2 long forward-pointing horns, with black strips extending from their center towards the tips. "Oh, has the hollow taken control?" Aizen asked. "King, you just pulled your hollow powers from my grip. It's in your control now, just like Bankai, so go kick his ass for harming Queen." The hollow said. "No, I am now going to go full power, no more holding back," I said angrily, gripping Kokurin and Jetsu tightly. Oriheim's POV. I looked up at Ichigo as I healed Shori. He'd just taken on a hollow form, and even from here I noticed that his Ryatsu had dropped off the map when he went into Bankai. But now there was a way to notice it. Even from where we sat, what could only be his Ryatsu was pushing into us all, and ever since he entered the form I felt the need to attack everything and fight everyone. I ignored this in favor of healing Shirori, but she would be out of the battle. "Tamashi no sure," I said, rushing toward Aizen. From the ground skeletons rose. Among them was the body of the Leash King Espada and the bodies of many of the fraction. "Kill," I ordered. The corpses rushed forward, each using their power. Aizen was effortlessly dodging most, and had easily taken them out, but was having problems with the corrosive cloud-covered leash. "Now's your chance, Ichigo," and Jetsu said. I nodded and gripped the hilt of my Zanpakuto tightly. "Are you sure I can do this and it work?" I asked mentally. "You're already in my Bankai," and Jetsu said, "and my Resurrection," Inferno informed. "And although Quincy are normally poisoned by hollows, you are part hollow, so you should have immunity to it," Shutsenjul said. "Should?" I asked. "You won't know until you try, King," Inferno said. "Fine," I replied, taking the bracelet on my wrist as a claymore formed from it. "Volstandig," I said calmly. Black Racier formed a pair of black wings on my back and 3 halos, 1 gold, 1 black, and 1 red, above my head. "Damn it, Barrigan! Even in death you're a pain in my ass!" Aizen yelled, becoming panicked as the Hogyoku kept him from being consumed. "And now, Ichigo, concentrate," Shutsenjul said. I nodded and took my hollow Ryatsu and mentally compressing it into a ball, then did the same to my Shinigami, and then my Quincy. "Now, connect it to us mentally," Shutenjul ordered. I imagined a line connecting each Ryatsu to the spirit it belonged with. "Now, take most of each Ryatsu and imagine a line on each and mix the 3 bigger Ryatsu balls together." I did as the Quincy spirit ordered. "Now connect it to yourself." I nodded at the order, and imagined a line of the mixed ball to me. Suddenly my Ryatsu flared and the claymore and Zanpakuto fused together, keeping the base of the Zanpakuto. My ripped clothing was replaced by a sleeveless white vest under my Bankai coat, which also had a white cloak over it. Along with your power increase in this new form, you can now shoot Siros from your Zanpakuto and use your Zanpakuto abilities through your body, and the Quincy techniques can be used from whether the Zanpakuto or your hands, Shutsenjul informed. "Useful," I said aloud, walking toward Aizen calmly. Aizen smiled and laughed triumphantly as he destroyed the deceased skeleton Arankar and turned only for his eyes to widen. "Amazing work, Aizen, but it is time I finish you. Your time being able to even breath as Sosuke Aizen is at an end," I stated. "No, I won't lose to you. I won't lose. I will transcend and take the Reo's place," he yelled, and the diamond-shaped point in his forehead, which I had just noticed was there, broke open, revealing a vertical black third eye upon the center of Aizen's forehead, and the skin on his face split open down the middle and pulled back around the sides of his head to reveal a blackened, demon-like skull. Aizen gained 3 holes running vertically down his chest, the Hogyoku standing at the center of the top hole. Aizen's feet became single claws, and his hands and feet became blackened, with his right hand fusing with his Zanpakuto. Aizen's butterfly-like wings, another thing I just noticed he had, changed into a set of 6 sheet-like wings, with eyes set upon the center, adorned with hollow-like skulls, and trailing into tendrils. Aizen no longer had any semblance of clothing in this form, and his musculature became more defined. "Oh, taking a hollow-like form, want to know why that is?" I asked smugly. "It is because the High Gaiku won't allow me to lose to you," he said confidently. Suddenly I was in front of him. "It is because you fear me, the Hogyoku gave you a form to match that fear," I said, and he jumped back to avoid a swing of my Zanpakuto. "Impossible! I am a transcendent who will rule the throne of heaven," he yelled. "Believe it, Sosuke Aizen, you are afraid," I said. "I was once told your espada had aspects of death, you know. I think I'll assign myself one, revenge." I said confidently and rushed forward. Aizen raised his blade when I threw Angetsu holding onto the chain, and jumped over him, and with a tug and a spin in midair the blade was rushing at him once more. He barely dodged, receiving a gash reaching from his right shoulder to the left side of his hips. Then I stopped in front of him, and then Senta began sending the blade after him at speeds unable to be seen by anyone except the Reo and his children, ripping into him 5 times every second. After a few seconds I stopped and pointed the tip of the blade at him, and he blinked when a black ball of Ryatsu formed in front of the tip. "Oh fuck," he said, and I just chuckled. "Gran Rei Siro," I said, and blasted the entire top half of his body to dust, leaving only the Hogyoku unscathed. I grabbed it, and watched as his lower half fell to the ground. I waited, but nothing happened. His Ryatsu was no longer there. I smirked and let out my hollow roar in triumph. "Ichigo released the form in this order: Hollow, Shinigami, then Quincy." And Jetsu informed. "Right," I replied, and released my Resurrection, then Bankai, then Volstandig. I quickly took off my mask, then sealed my Zanpakuto, then released my Claymore's form. I turned and, using a mix of Shunpa, Hirenkyaku, and Sonito, ran toward the others, appearing beside Oriheim. "You guys okay?" I asked, worried. "We're fine." Oriheim froze when she saw me. "Kurosaki-kun, your hair and eyes." I blinked when she said this and looked for the nearest reflective object, a piece of glass, and saw my hair was now longer than it normally was, /n down my hair, and my eyes, instead of their normal brown, were now golden. "Wow, I don't know how I feel about this," I said aloud. "I don't know about you, King, but I think we look 5 times hotter than normal, ladies by the hundreds." Inferno said. "I think you look just as good as you normally do, maybe better, but you haven't changed from the man my two-sama wants me to marry, the kind, protective, #1 person I want as my guardian," Shori said, standing up and blushing. "And there's the only woman we need, King," Inferno added. "Oh, is Inferno speaking?" Shori asked. "What?" I asked, surprised. "I knew your hollow's name since I saw your mask, Ichigo-kun. I'm practically the goddess of hollows, obviously I'd have that power." She deadpanned. "Oh," I said in reply. Third-person POV. The Reo, also known by his birth name Akihiko Raikami, smiled at the image of his daughter and here. "When will you tell them?" his Zanpakuto spirit asked. "When I'm sure they'll marry," he replied. "You know how Shurtan feels about being kept in the dark," the Reo's hollow reminded. "I must agree with the moron. Shiorimusum hates being kept in the dark," his Quincy spirit said. "Fine, go tell them, Yanaka." The Reo relented. The black and purple wearing Zanpakuto spirit nodded and materialized outside his inner world, leaving his hall. Ichigo's POV. After finishing healing everyone, Karakura was put back, and after 5 hours me and the others were back in our homes resting, and I sat listening. Shirori described the fight, even the parts where she was unable to fight, animatedly talking about how I fought like a god of war, taking no damage in any way due to my power. "So your Bankai are complimentary," Ishin said with a goofy grin, but was ignored. "Shiorine, how were you taken out so easily?" Yuzu asked. "Well, when Aizen captured Oriheim-chan and he used a device which caused my Ryatsu to be unstable, that and being in a less dense area, I didn't have the necessary compaction of ambient Ryatsu around to keep it from harming me. Then when we entered the human world I strained what little stability I had, causing my Ryatsu to drop to almost 6th seat level when the attack from Aizen began," she explained. "Oh, like putting pressure on a wound?" Karen asked. "Exactly so, Karen-chan," Shori answered, smiling. With that we went on to have dinner and go to bed. I was woken at midnight by someone poking me. I opened my eyes to see a woman in her mid-20s smiling apologetically. She had black hair and purple eyes and was wearing a black kimono with a purple obi. "Ichigo-sen, please wake up and wake Shioryo-sama as well," she said. "Shori?" I asked, and noticed the white-haired hybrid was curled up against me asleep, and something that made me blush was that she was wearing only a button-up white shirt and a pair of panties, leaving her assets, which matched Yoruchi level and size, to warp around my arm as she hugged me. "Ah!" I yelled in surprise, jumping up from the bed so fast I might as well have been in that ultimate form I took. Shiori's eyes opened halfway, and she rubbed the sleep from her eyes to see Ichigo blushing furiously. "Ichigo-kun, why did you scream?" she asked. Ichigo said, not wanting to inform her. "That would be your state of dress, Shioryo-sama," the black-haired woman stated. She looked down and then blushed deeply herself. "I could have sworn this was buttoned up when I went to sleep," she said aloud. "Wait a second?" Shiori said, blinked, and then turning to the second girl in the room, "Yanaka-sama? Now Shiori, I've told you to address me less formally. I remember when you used to call me Yanaka-tan, you were so cute, made your own Aizen jealous." the woman said, laughing. What brings you here, Yanaka-sama? Shirori asked, curious. I was sent by Akiko-in to inform you both of something he wishes you to know. She informed. To-sama? The princess asked the woman. Yes, now he has waited to inform you of this, but as you know, Akiko-in has a fragment of his own Otosan's power residing in him. But what you do not know is he has given a fragment of that power to you, your Onaizen, and Ichigo-kun here. She informed. Wait, we have fragments of Ojaizen inside us? Shirori yelled. I'm glad I soundproofed the room. Yanaka whispered to herself. What does that mean for us? Ichigo asked. Title-wise, you are gods. Power-wise, once you train more, you'll tap into the power of that fragment and become stronger. It is also behind the change in your eye color, as all those with god fragments except for Shiori Ojasama's Onaizen have had golden eyes after getting used to it. She explained. I see, so it wouldn't be a stretch if people were to call Shirori Shinigami as a title? Ichigo asked. No, in fact she has the highest claim to that title. Your title would by God of Souls, just like hers is Goddess of Shinigami and Hollows. She informed. God of Souls? Ichigo asked. Among other things, yes, a title you share with Akiko-in. She replied. Among other things? Shirori asked. It seems Ichigo-kun might also have a connection to Hell, though what connection we don't know. Akiko-in is currently requesting a meeting with the Kusanada to find out what that is. She answered. Thank you for informing us, Yanaka-sama. Shirori said. It is time I leave. Akiko-in can't last long without his favorite Zanpakuto spirit. Yanaka said and disappeared in a purple cloud of mist. That was Akihiko's Zanpakuto? Ichigo asked. Yes, Yanaka, a darkness element Zanpakuto, powerful, and she has a rather motherly quality that I am thankful for. Shirori said. I'm going back to bed. Ichigo said. And I will continue to use you as my pillow. Shirori said, buttoning up the shirt. No, go to your bed. Ichigo replied. I will use you as my pillow. You have no choice in the matter, Ichigo-kun. Shirori answered and then laid down beside him, hugging him as she went to sleep. Well, hell, she can be stubborn now. Ichigo sighed. King, just give her what she wants and your life will be easy. Besides, you need a good night's sleep where you aren't fighting us. Inferno said. I concur. Shutsenjo commented. Yeah, sleep and let your body rest. As Inferno and I see it, you have a hot woman in bed sleeping beside you. It is happening, get used to it. And Jetsu said, subtly insulting Shutsenjo. Fine, but I do this under protest on the grounds it is very distracting. Ichigo said as he slowly went to sleep. The next day, Ichigo and the others found themselves surprised as Shirori walked up to the school instead of the school uniform like before. She now wore a white shirt and a white skirt and white jacket. Also worn were white fingerless gloves, white shoes, and black stockings. Shiori-chan, won't you get in trouble for not wearing the uniform? Orihime asked. No, see, with Ajikuin's help I was able to change the memories of the students and teachers. They now know me as Oki-sensei's teacher's aide. Shirori said, smiling. So in other words, you couldn't handle school? Ichigo said. It's too much work for something I already have knowledge of. She said. How do you have that knowledge? Yurio asked, curious. Simple, my Zanpakuto is an illusion type. Shirori informed. What does that have to do with anything? Orihime asked. My Ryatsu naturally has a mind-reading qualities just like Ichigo-kun's has a comforting presence that comes with being comfortable in your bed sleeping, that comes with the darkness of night. Shirori explained. So it pulled the information from us? Ichigo asked. Yep, and Oki-sensei and so on and so forth. Shirori replied. Every human I've passed by has given me information on how things work in the human world. I simply use it as it is given. Shirori said proudly. With that, Shirori walked ahead to the classroom. Later that day, upon entering the Kurosaki clinic, the two found Isshin working on an injured woman. She appeared to be in her early 20s with mid-back length reddish and brown hair, bright blue eyes, wearing a white kimono with light blue lining, a light blue obi, and a pair of lightweight white shoes. Around her wrist was a bracelet with a familiar pendant. Goatface, who's that? Ichigo asked. Ichigo, come over here and meet your cousin. Probably not the best way to meet her when she's injured, but it doesn't matter either way. Isshin said. Ichigo, this is your cousin Hikari Kurosaki. He introduced. Hello. The woman said as Isshin bandaged her arm. So you're a Quincy? Ichigo asked as Shirori hid behind him. Yes, thought the reason I'm here has to do with Shirori Urahara, behind you. She said in reply. Shirori stepped out from behind the tri-hybrid. Yes? She asked, suspicious of the confirmed Quincy woman. Is that any way to greet your niece? She asked. Niece? Shirori asked. Yes, my father is Yuha Bak, also known as Yawach. She informed. When that sentence was finished, Shori froze and her eyes were glazed over yet also full of fear. To the others it seemed to shake her, but they had no idea of what she was thinking. Flashback. Shori appearing no more than 5 years old and ran over to a boy appearing 10 years old with black hair and reddish-brown eyes. "Oni-sama, look at what I made for you," she said, smiling as she held up a small sculpture of the boy with a broadsword leaning on it with it stabbed into the ground. "Is that supposed to matter to me?" he asked, writing a letter. Young Shori looked down. "Oni-sama, will you play with me?" "No, now go away," he said dismissively. Years later, Shori, now appearing 12 years old, stood with her Zanpakuto in shurikai smiling at the same boy who now appeared to be 17 years old. "Look, Oni-sama, isn't Kagami-hime beautiful?" she asked. "No, now quit coming to my room," he ordered. But Oni-sama, she was interrupted by a slap to the face. "Leave now," he ordered coldly. She stood frozen in shock and he stood punching her through several walls. "Now I can continue," he said, going back to the book he was writing in. Years later, "Oni-sama, what are you doing?" Shori, now appearing 14, asked the now 20-year-old man. "Leaving," he said, and she opened her mouth to ask why, only to gasp and cough up blood as she is stabbed in the chest. He pulled the rapier broadsword from her body and slashed downward, and Shiori's eyes closed in fear as he kept cutting and stabbing her. "Enough." The man turned and there stood Akihiko in his golden shihakusho. "Oh, so the deadbeat finally comes to say hello to his son?" the man asked. "Return to your room, we'll talk about this later," Akihiko said, walking toward Shori. "Sorry, old man, but I won't be listening to you anymore," he said, summoning a second broadsword. He rushed forward and Akihiko sighed. "Blacken, Yanaka," he stated, and his Zanpakuto transformed as he drew it. The Zanpakuto in its shurikai form was a katana with a blade made of shadows with a black hilt with a circular tsuba. The man rushed forward and Akihiko blocked simply with a twitch of his hand. "Come, mask of the unholy, drag across the fields of heaven and poison the angels guarding God. Bring down the monarch of the heavens and pave the way for the new God. Bring down the monarch so he may not return. Heido number 100 Dokumasuku," Akiko said, blocking and dodging each slash and stab as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. "No!" the man yelled as a hollow mask formed on his face, and the same material covered the rest of his body. Shori later woke up heavily bandaged and still slowly healing. Flashback end. "Shori," Ichigo said, concerned. Shori looked up from her flashback to see she was leaning against a wall. "Sorry, I am going to lie down," Shori said and went upstairs. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the EmperorNox for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.